Alright guys, we're lucky to have two very busy men, Tim and Sanky. Sanky's the president and Tim is the chief executive. Big titles, bigger hearts. I've asked them just to talk a little bit about D&AD because obviously the pencil rankings have come out, and just to get their feedback in terms of, you know, I think there was a perception that D&AD was sort of a British competition. But obviously, I mean, just from the judges that I've seen, you know, it's becoming a far more global and inclusive competition, which I think is fantastic, but the standard is still very high. So I just wanted to get a couple of questions. Sanky, in terms of, you know, what D&AD has done for you, or what you think of D&AD, a couple of wise words.
Okay, I'll attempt. It is quite early. I think, you know, the biggest thing they are is really a support mechanism, I think, for almost the lifespan of someone in the creative industries. You know, they start to engage with you when you're at college, maybe even in your first year. And then there's certain programs and things that they roll out pretty much, you know, on a weekly basis that can support you as you kind of go through your career. It might be, you know, they kind of help you into your internship. We've got some packages which is just launched with HP that's supporting that, which will get people into the places that they're most suited to. You know, when they get there, you know, if they kind of enter some stuff and it starts to become interesting, we can write about that. We can start to talk about that in the, you know, through the site and through different activities we do online. And then, you know, if they really become someone that's kind of really important, we can get them in to do a president's lecture, and just, you know, and then they can maybe start to get involved back into the process where they educate people, who, you know, and help out. So there's a kind of virtuous circle. I know people talk about that quite a lot. I think they are. There
was something you said on day one where you said we're moving from the physical to the digital. I mean, how do you think that's going to impact on, you know, if I said advertising over the next 10 years, do you think things are going to change radically?
Well, I think we all know that everything's changing radically. Yeah. It's the very short answer for that, and it's our not necessarily reaction, but it's kind of the way that we kind of listen to that and react to it. The communications world is changing, and we don't know what the shape of it's going to be in 10 years. We know that there'll still be design, advertising, communications, product design. All these things will be there, but how they interconnect to each other, I don't know. So it means that the shape of what we do will probably be different. We'll still be here, and we'll still be supporting that, but exactly what those things are, I mean, you just couldn't crystal gaze on that, I don't think.
And then Tim, if I just want to ask you, in terms of you know, it being a global competition, I mean, there are millions of competitions. I'm saying, what is it about D&AD that you think sets it apart? I mean, obviously the pencil rankings and things like that, but you think something special about D&AD?
Oh, I think there are a lot of special things about D&AD, starting with the day of its foundation. You know, it was put together not as a business, but as a not-for-profit charity that funnels all of the income that it generates back into education. So that's a kind of a fundamental beginning. And also it was started by creative people, for creative people, and to be about creative people. And it's kind of resolutely been about those things ever since day one in 1962. So, you know, I think this, in terms of its DNA, it's different before you get anywhere else. I think there are all kinds of details about the way that we set about organizing and judging the work that support the idea that D&AD is a kind of an absolute reference standard for creativity in the world. You know, there are many shows around the place, and some of them are good and some of them are less good, but one of the few certainties in this world is that if you do well at D&AD, it really means something. You know, the quality of the jurors, the nature of the process, the decision making that we support among the jurors is such that it's more rigorous than anything out there. You asked about internationalism. It is of course true that D&AD started as the British Designers and Art Directors Association. We kind of lost the British bit as a title some way back there, and we also very tentatively opened up the show to international entries in, I think, 1988. What's now happened, X number of years later, is that fully 75% of the work that we see at D&AD is from outside the UK. So it is clearly a global organization, even just as defined by the people who enter. Also, the composition of the juries has changed. We have far more people from far-flung corners of the world judging. So I think you can, in all honesty, say that it is not just a reference standard for UK creativity, but creativity anywhere that it occurs on the planet.
Okay, and then 30 seconds or less. What do you guys think of the pencil rankings? What was your intention with the pencil rankings? Do you want to take that one, Sanky? Or?
Tim can start that.
All right.
Well, you know, the idea with the pencil rankings is fairly simple. There are other ranking mechanisms in the world. It occurred to us that those mechanisms are not always transparent, and it made us wonder whether it was possible to do well in some of them without ever actually doing any particularly strikingly great single piece of work.
It helps small countries, doesn't it? Because it can be about sheer volume. But with this, it seems to help with that.
It's a very simple thing. We just thought, look, you know, that we have a lot of respect for the One Show. We think that it's that they're the most like us of all of the organizations in the world. Big difference between D&AD and the One Show and Cannes. And we thought, why don't we just look at performance in the two most rigorous, most highly regarded shows in the world? And in that way, a small agency or a small market can have one single stunning piece of work and go way up the rankings and have much more profile than it might have in a somewhat more extended, inclusive environment than this one is.
Like us.
Subtle.
And then, all right, and then one word to describe D&AD.
Brilliant.
It's fun.
Yeah? That's 2 words.
Fun.